look, there was no vote taken on the Musk deal today, Ross, but if you could have voted, are you for or against?
Oh, I'm for it 100%. I mean, I can't wait for it to happen. I think Elon's going to do a phenomenal job fixing this wonderful asset.
So have you increased your Twitter position since the sell-off, and are you continuing to boost it ahead of this deal?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The fact that people don't believe that Elon is serious about taking this company over just proves how many people don't really understand Elon after all these years. So he's dead serious on completing this deal. And it is at a price of over $54, and there is no renegotiation going on. So, I very much believe he's going to complete the deal.
So look, some shareholders are excited like you. Some shareholders are skeptical. Natasha Lamb, as I've mentioned, very skeptical about how Elon Musk will handle free speech, human rights, civil rights issues. What do you think about those more nuanced and very complicated issues?
Well, I think that it's silly to think that Elon Musk's new job is going to be the arbitrator of free speech on Twitter. That's not his goal in taking over the company. I think what he's trying to do is put in a management team and a transparent system so that the users of Twitter fully understand what isn't allowed on the platform. What I think most people are upset about, including myself with Twitter, is just the sort of arbitrary nature that decisions are made and the lack of transparency. And I think by bringing transparency, which he's already been pushing really hard on Twitter, at Twitter, to get more transparency, I think will be very beneficial for the users of Twitter.
Now, interestingly, we heard Parag Agrawal reiterate the company's mission to serve a diversity of views. But earlier this month, Elon Musk announced that he will be voting Republican. How does that strike you? Is that good for Twitter?
Elon and I are in the same camp here. We're both ex-Democrats, and I'm never going to be a Republican because I can't stand them. But I've become an independent voter, and I think what Elon is saying is true. I worked very, very hard to get Joe Biden in as president, and I'm a very big believer in the values that the Democrats represent, and they've achieved nothing. They've achieved none of the agenda that they set out to achieve, and they've really disappointed big supporters like myself, and especially entrepreneurs who they've attacked and constantly saying that we don't pay our fair share when we do. And so it's just, they've pushed especially successful entrepreneurs out of the Democratic Party. And I'm one of them too.
Well, speaking about a big-time entrepreneur who is now out at Twitter, Jack Dorsey, the era of Jack Dorsey is officially over. We knew this was coming, no formal role at the company now, but we can assume he will still have some influence. His tweets will carry some influence. What do you think is the significance of Jack leaving?
Well, I think he'll be back. I think he'll be back.
How so?
Well, I think he's going to.
What do you mean?
I think he's in with this Elon stuff. I mean, I would be surprised if he's not working with Elon at all. He seems to be on Twitter, sort of jumping on the arguments that Elon's are making and seem to be defending Elon's positions. So I'm not really sure what's next for Jack. I think he's really focused on Square, which as a Square shareholder, I want him to be. And I think he'll play a role in the new Twitter.
Meantime, Silver Lake's Durban didn't get enough votes. Shareholders did not re-elect him to the board. What's your reaction to that?
It's hard to understand, why certain shareholders are on the board and not on the board, especially when they have large stakes in the company where that might have changed. So, I find that to be significant because Silver Lake is a major player, but I think it has to do with the changing nature of what's going on. So there might be some conflicts of interest involved as well. Maybe they're involved with the new takeover, so they don't want to have a conflict by having somebody on the board. So it's just really hard to tell why these moves are being made.
Meta also held its shareholder meeting today. Peter Thiel no longer on the board there, so that's also the end of an era. He's going to work more on the Trump agenda. I'm curious for your thoughts on Twitter versus Facebook. I know you have a minuscule position in Facebook, also versus Snap, especially given social media stocks getting pummeled and Snap coming out saying they're going to miss their guidance.
Right, and we've spent a good day looking at Snap, and I have friends at Snap, so I was trying to figure out what the hell is going on there. and these are three different stories, and I think that they're playing out differently. So Snap is just getting eaten by TikTok. You know, there's not much more to it. TikTok is like a vacuum of young people's eyeballs, and it's just Snapchat hasn't been able to compete, and there's nothing more to it than that. Meta and Facebook and Instagram are also suffering from the TikTok thing and the Apple privacy changes, which are really affecting Instagram and Facebook in their targeting, but also a lot of ad people are saying, hey, you need to move some of your Instagram budget to TikTok. And that's what's happening. So that puts pressure on Facebook and Meta, not to mention, there really hasn't been any innovation there in a long time, and the younger generation isn't using Facebook. And then with Twitter, it's really, to me, the news. So it serves a completely different demographic than the Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook demo. And it really serves people who are looking for information. And therefore, to me, it's a much more powerful and valuable platform. And in fact, Twitter is probably the most valuable, information platform in the world. And if you look at the depth of the global leaders and users, there really is nothing like it. And as an investor, I can't even imagine trying to be an investor and not use Twitter. So I think Twitter has a lot more intrinsic value than the other platforms.